All right. Many of you guys know me here. This is not our first rodeo with what we've been doing. This is our last workshop that is part of our leadership development certification series workshop. We are really pleased to have everybody join us today. And we're really pleased to have Mr. Dave Kelly with us. Most of you know Dave. He has been our friend over the last several months for our leadership series, and today he is joining us again to talk about self-esteem. But Dave is a professional speaker and trainer. He is a pro at all things leadership and all things service engagement, and so we are really pleased to have Dave Kelly here to talk to us today about self-esteem. But real quick, before I turn it over to him, just a reminder that that I'll be joining you guys a little bit later to do our live drawing for participation today. And let me make sure that I know what we're doing for our drawing, but we are giving away a $50 gift card to Target for live participation today, and then also recording. That information will be posted. The video should be posted sometime by tomorrow. So additional people who are watching this on the video have 2 more opportunities to win 2 $25 gift cards to Red Robin. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dave Kelly. He's going to talk to us about self-esteem and having a healthy relationship with you. And I will go ahead and drop that link to our worksheet in the chat.
Great. Thank you so much, Carrie. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you all being here today. We're nearing the end of the semester. I have had a wonderful time with you all the last couple of months, working with you and Carrie and presenting for you. And actually some of the other Ivy Tech campuses have had a chance to join us. So I'm really excited about this topic today because it is something that is really personal to me, this topic of self-esteem, and I'm going to be sharing some things with you and hopefully for you as all. What I'm going to share right now is my screen because, as Carrie mentioned, she's going to drop that link to the handout in there, but just in case you would prefer to get it on your phone, there you go. There's a QR code. You can do that. So feel free to do that there. If you'd like to do that, it is a fillable PDF. So if you're able to open Adobe on your device, you should be able to actually fill it in as we go along through this. So I'm excited to be here with you and looking forward to this program today. And at any time, if you haven't been with me before, anytime, if you have a question or a comment, feel free to type it in the chat. You can even unmute yourself and say, hey, Dave, I've got a question, or hey, Dave, can I say something? Because this is for you. This time is for you, and I want it to be valuable for you and for you to get out of this what you're looking for. So talking today about self-esteem, and when I think about this topic, and it really first came to me a few years ago. I had a school ask me if this was a topic that I could speak on. And I, as you're going to find out now, have had a lot of experience with working on my own personal self-esteem and had been thinking about trying to incorporate some of that into some of my other presentations and thought, you know what, how about a whole presentation on this? And so that's what we have here today. And I got to tell you, I love the way, I have to admit, my wife does my PowerPoints for me. I love this picture that she found. I mean, when I think about self-esteem, the idea of soaring and being the best that I can possibly be, this is an image that really speaks to me. So I want to share that with you, and maybe you can keep that image in your head as we go through this here today. And when I think about this topic, I think about when I was younger, when I was in my early teens, about 13, I had very bad acne. It was something that had run a little bit in my family. I had an uncle who was 10 years older than me. He went through it, but my parents didn't. My sister didn't. I did, really bad. And it was something that I dealt with every day. It made me feel self-conscious. It affected the way that I looked at myself. Got bullied a little bit in school, and it really had some impact there. And I recall one day that I think it was over the summer, and my dad was not trying to be malicious. I'm going to preface what I'm about to say with that. He was trying to help me. But what came out of his mouth was he looked at me and he said, I think your acne makes you look ugly. Wow. I mean, I still have feelings about saying that, and it's been quite a few years. Here's what I realized years later after some counseling and some other work on self esteem, that what I heard my dad say that day, what my subconscious heard was, I think you're ugly. And that lived with me for a pretty long time, till my early 30s. And it was something that I had to work through. It was something I didn't realize was there for a long time. I mean, I knew I had kind of issues about this. I'm not sure we even called it self-esteem then, but I knew I had some issues of self-confidence. Leadership roles really helped improve that for me, showed me that I really had an ability and a talent in that area. And it really helped build up my confidence, especially my senior year of high school and into college. And so that helped, but I still had these issues. And what I found myself going for with things I did in school. I ran track and cross country, and I was a basketball player. I was in the band. I was in a very small high school. You did everything. I was in clubs and organizations. I even had a part-time job with all of this other stuff going on. I was in the school musical. And what I realized that I was looking for was I was looking for validation. I was looking for validation that in some ways may have been taken away from me that day when my dad made that comment to me. And so I was trying to find it in other places. And this went on even into college. It went on even to my early adult years. And honestly, after I came to this realization about this, I had a session with a counselor and I'm being very vulnerable here. So please, I do appreciate your indulgence. Very tearful. I mean, just floodgates when I found out that was what it was. Uh, Even after that, I still was seeking validation. Now, shortly after that, my father and I had a conversation about it, and he said he had no idea. He didn't even remember doing it. And I know he wasn't doing it maliciously, and he never said it again, but it stuck inside of me. I have a wall of plaques over here from leadership roles, from things that I've done for community service as an advisor. A lot of these were me seeking validation. And I recognize that now. Now I look at them and they are wonderful memories of things that I've done in the past. And I look at them and I have great memories about these times. But at the time, each one of them was an attempt for validation. Some of them were things that I could strive for, that I could work towards and maybe apply for the award. Other things were just given to me. And even every now and then, I still get this little thing. 2 years ago, as Carrie mentioned to you, I was named the Campus Speaker of the Year by the Association for the Promotion of Campus Activities. And fortunately for me, that came in a phone call about 3 weeks before the ceremony, so I knew about it. But it was such a shock. And even at that moment, I was like, wow, there's more validation. So that was me. That is my self-esteem story. My father and I did reconcile. We had a great relationship. He passed away a few years ago. I was able to spend a lot of time with him there the last couple of weeks of his life. And it was never brought up again because it didn't need to be. But self-esteem is something you may have to work at. So let's talk a little bit about this today. Now, I am not an expert in this area. So if there are concerns you have, if there are issues that you might have of depression and other things, there are resources for you on your campus. There are resources for you in the community. Take advantage of them. And these could be related to your self-esteem. I've struggled with depression over the course of my life, and I know that some of that is connected. And so I've had to work through that and work with that. And it's worth it to do the work. And also, again, despite everything I've gone through, I did have a resource that I went through or that I used to develop this course called How to Build Your Self-Esteem in a Weekend. It's an ebook. It's free. If you have the handout, the link to it is on the back page. I recommend it. It goes into a lot of areas that I can't get into here today. Also, for those of you who are parents, they have a whole section on self-esteem for kids. And so that's something you can use. And I can tell you what, for me with my daughters, part of what I did to help keep their self-esteem intact was I really worked to never say anything negative to them. Certainly nothing, like my offhanded comment my dad said to me, and was always supportive of them in the things that they wanted to do. And as a parent, I felt that was important. And they both have a very healthy sense of self-esteem and purpose. One's a little bit older, she's 32. The other is in college right now. Pardon me, and as they're going through their lives, I'm really proud in seeing how confident they are and confident in who they are. So, as I said, we're going to get into this and talk about this, and you've got time here. So, if you have questions, excuse me, I'm going to blame it on my second coronavirus shot yesterday. So, whatever that is, I'll blame that there. Uh, I love this quote from Arthur Rubinstein, and it's on your handout. I have found that if you love life, life will love you back. And I think that's true. And I wake up every day very much confident, very much in love with life, eager to get to my computer and see what's going on, to see what the new things that are happening in this world that we have. It's been a challenge this last year, and I know this has also affected a lot of people's mental attitude as well as their self-esteem of what we've gone through this past year. But ultimately, we have come through this, and we are looking forward to hopefully a whole new environment in the fall, in a new environment as we go out into the world and the world starts reopening for us. So let's talk about some of these things. Where does it come from? It comes from the self-esteem is from the Greek word to estimate. So your self-esteem is your estimation of yourself. It's your opinion of yourself. Now that can be shaped by things that you think, things that you see when you look in the mirror, by outside forces, by other people, by advertising, by all kinds of things, social media. I just recently, for the last 10 days, went on a news fast, not looking at any news websites. And I was a poli sci major, so that's kind of hard for me. Oh my gosh, I feel so much more positive than I did before because really I'm finding the news is just all negative. So my wife tells me the major headlines. So I do know some of the stuff that's going on the last 10 days. But for me, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. I agree. For me, not looking at those websites, and I don't watch any of the stuff on TV, I have found my attitude is so much better. So I think that's a great policy, Lisa, to have. Our experiences will shape us. And as we go through life, we're going to be shaped by these experiences and we can learn from them. But what I want to suggest is we don't dwell on them. Now, subconsciously we might, but we can work through those things. And so here's a few ideas that I'm going to share with you. Now, Carrie just put the link into the handout in the chat again. If you haven't grabbed it, now is a good time to grab it because there's a little survey there. This is from that book on how to build your self-esteem in a weekend. It's a survey that you can answer true or false to. I am not going to ask you to give your answers or the number of truths you said or number of falses you said, none of that. This is for you, but it's going to help inform our conversation today. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to work on that. And if you have questions about it, you can privately chat me if you'd like. And if you need that link again, please pop it in the chat, say, hey, please post it again. Oh, and there it is. Harry's just the best. Again, I'm not going to ask you to share. I'm not going to ask you to put it in the chat. Be honest with yourself. About 30 more seconds. And if you would, count up the number of questions you answered false to, the ones you put an F for. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. You don't have to post your number, but you can. So I want to let you know that's not a requirement, but I do thank you, Lisa and Amerijo, for doing that. Um, so here is what the people who put that book together put together that I'm, you're very open, Lisa, I appreciate that. If you answered false to 3 or more, you may need to work on your self-esteem. And I'm not going to ask you which ones you answered false to. I did answer false to more than 3. So even as hard as I work at building my confidence and my self-esteem over the years, I still had and have work to do. And the great thing is, and why I'm encouraging you, because I have no connection to the people who created it. I don't get paid for it. I'm giving them credit that I'm using their resource, but there is a whole section in there talking about things that people do when they have low self-esteem. And I used to include it here in the handout, but it can be a bit scary. And so that's why I didn't include it here today. But it does talk about how people do things like self-medicating, that they get into addictions like not only alcohol, drugs, but gambling, sex addictions, and other things that people kind of close in and they don't associate with other people. Food addiction, yeah, Lisa. And especially with this last year that we've gone through, we've already been in isolation. That's some scary stuff. So please, if you did answer more to yes to any of them, if it's an issue, if there's something there you want to work on it and find a resource that will help you. So I encourage you to do that. I'm going to give you a few resources that I think from my non-professional approach, but having been through this, that I've used that have worked pretty well for me. And so I want to encourage you to follow along here, and I'm going to give you a few things to work on. Let's break down a couple of things. First of all, our past experiences, how they can impact us, how they can affect our self-esteem. The past is in the past. Leave it there. And that can be tough to do, but it is something that we need to do. We have these little voices that talk to us and they say, oh, remember when you were in high school and you did this? And I've been out of high school for a while. And I don't listen to those voices. Instead, what I do is I'm like, okay, I already learned from that. Or it's like, okay, there's a point here I can learn from. And then instead, I immediately think about a positive thing, a day or an event that makes me feel good. As a student leader in college, I was the lead person in Wisconsin, where I went to school, for a group called Circle K International, commonly now known as CKI. If you were in Key Club in high school or had one in your high school, this is the next step. And for us, the top person in the state or district, as we refer to him, is called the governor. Not an evil governor like Walking Dead, but a good governor. And I was a good governor. Pardon me. And when I first got elected, I set some very high goals. And a lot of people were very like, oh, you'll never achieve those. Those goals are too high. Oh, great, Samantha. Glad. Key Club and CKI. Super. And I'm a Kiwanis member now, too, which is the parent organization. And they were really a little discouraging. Well, we blew those goals away. We had an outstanding year. And each year we would have a convention. That's where we held our elections. So at the convention where I was going out of office, I got a chance to give a speech talking about the year. And in that speech, I talked about how we'd set these goals and nobody believed we could achieve them. And I compared us to that first Rocky movie where nobody believes Rocky has a chance against the heavyweight champion of the world. Nobody's ever heard of him. He's this little nobody from Philadelphia, and he gets his chance to fight. And he has a great fight. And even though he loses in the end, it still was an awesome fight for him. I'm sorry if I just spoiled that for you, but that movie's like 45 years old. If you haven't seen it yet, that's on you. Anyway, and so I compared that, but of course we won because we achieved our goals. Well, that night we had a dance at the convention, and my board got the DJ to play Gonna Fly Now, which is the Rocky theme. If you've seen any of those movies, it's that thing that starts out at the beginning. Bum, 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 bum. And so they got the DJ to play that, and then they picked me up on their shoulders and carried me around the dance floor, and I was waving my arms like a boxer had just won a fight. That was a pretty good night. I'd rather think about that than any of these little voices that want to try to talk to me. So use your positive times, your good times, your positive moments to vanquish those little voices, the regrets, but learn from them. But then let them live in the past and let them stay there. Other people's opinions. I shared the story about my dad. They can impact on your self-esteem. Sometimes they burrow in like did with me and just lied there for a while before I was finally able to work on it and do something about it, but it impacted me for a long time, even after I understood what the issue was. But you have to recognize that and realize that your opinion of yourself self-esteem is your estimation of yourself is more important than what anybody else says. And then I mentioned earlier about some of the negativity that comes from other places like social media and advertising. Realize advertising is all about telling you you're not good enough or you don't have enough stuff or the right stuff to have. And that is very debilitating when everything is telling you this. And so recognize that and manage your expectations based on what is appropriate for you. Now, for me, I'm really not into stuff. We have a couple of HD TVs, but we don't have the big plasma TV hanging on the wall and all that. We've never really cared about that. And we don't play video games, so we don't have any of that stuff. Even my daughters didn't play video games. I don't, maybe they do now, but they really was never anything that was an issue for us. So, but if you do, that's fine. But understand that all that advertising is trying to tell you that you're not good enough. You are. You are plenty good enough. And then we have our own thoughts, the things that live inside of us, the ideas that we have, and the things that we maybe believe or buy into. And so we have to think about things from a positive standpoint. And I'm going to give you some tools to do that as we go through this program here today. Ultimately, what I want you to do is I don't want you to be like this guy, from the Milky Way commercial. No regrets, because she messes up his tattoo. What I want to encourage you to do is actually right now, if you have the handout or you have actually if you have an extra little piece of paper laying around, a scrap paper, back of an envelope that you don't need, write down a regret that you have. And you're not going to share it with anybody. Don't worry about that. Again, this is about you, and I'm going to give you a tool that you can use. One of mine would be is that I wish I had, in my dad's final years, I wish I had spent more time talking to him. I always thought there would be more time. Now, I have actually reconciled with that, and I did spend 10 of the last 11 days of his life with him. And so we talked about those types of things, but still, it's something that I wish I had done. So think about a regret you have. You're not going to be asked to share it. And I'm going to give you about 15 seconds because I don't want you to dwell on them either. But write it down on something. You can write it on your handout. Now what I'm going to ask you to do, if you wrote it on your handout, scribble it out, obliterate it so that you can't read it anymore. If you wrote it on another piece of paper, tear it up, and you could even turn your camera on and we can watch you tear it up. You could run it through a shredder. You could do, when I do this live, I have students write them down on index cards and then I collect them in an envelope. I have the students put them in. I never look at them. I bring them home and I run them through my shredder. One time we were at a campground for a weekend retreat and I did this activity and we took that envelope and we threw it in a bonfire that we had at night. That was very powerful. So obliterate that regret so that you don't think about it again. And if you want to, you could also put them on a piece of paper, stick it in an envelope, and that way when you have another one, pull that paper out and you can write on it. I like to destroy them and just get rid of them because then they can never come back around to haunt me, so to speak. But don't live in your regrets. You don't want to be in regret. Don't be like little bunny foo-foo hopping through the forest, picking up the field mice and bopping them on the head, and then having regretted that you did that. Yeah, I did just go there. Now, talking about positivity, let's talk about affirmations. I am a huge believer in affirmations, and it is not a cliche. They do make a difference in your life. Affirmations can be used to build your confidence, give you a positive attitude, and build your self-esteem. What they are is statements that you tell yourself regularly. I try to do mine on a daily basis. I've been doing this for so long that they're kind of just part of who I am, but I still like to say them because they remind me of them. You claim victory over things you have now or things you will have in the future. When I was in school, I had a notebook where I wrote in that notebook, I am the president of Circle K International, line after line after line after line. And after 3 years, I ran for that position and I won. So I affirmed it before it even happened. I stated it like it already existed. That's what I'm going to ask you to do as I have you write some affirmations. Before I ever went out to become a professional speaker, I told myself, I am a successful professional speaker. I did that for 4 years before I did anything about it. And then finally, I think my brain kicked into gear and said, It's time for us to make that happen. These things can build up your self-esteem. I am a great father. I am a super husband. I am in excellent physical condition. Okay, not right now, but I will be. And I made some decisions for Lent this year that have paid off, and I'm doing better. So you see, affirmations can make a big difference for you. So what I'm going to ask you to do is write some affirmations. I'm going to, oh, good, Samantha, you already do this. That is so great. So you can see them every day. Yeah. And I was even going to suggest the mirror as a place of saying your affirmations. I like to say them in the mirror because then I can see myself and I can smile to myself. So I'm going to encourage you to say them out loud 6 times per day, at least at the beginning. I know many of you are thinking, I don't have time for that. I have 25 that I say, and they take me maybe a minute and a half. I'll say them in the mirror so I can smile at myself. I'll say them when I get to my desk. When I'm driving in Atlanta traffic, somebody cuts me off. I don't swear at them. I don't make a gesture. I just say my affirmations. I am a successful professional speaker. And you can do that with one of yours. So take, let's call it 90 seconds, a minute and a half, write some affirmations. There's space for several of them there. You can grab more paper if you want to write more. You don't have to fill every line, but state the, I hear you, Kristen, you don't have that kind of control. I've been to Fort Wayne. I know that can be a crazy place. And so state them as though they exist now. Not I will be a college graduate. I am a college graduate. And that can count for you whether you're going to graduate in the next 2 weeks or you're a first-year student. I'm a college graduate. Oh, wonderful idea, Samantha. Write 3 statements of gratitude every day and put them in a jar. Once a month, I try and read through them to build up my self-esteem. Yeah, writing gratitude statements is really powerful. And I have something akin to that I'm going to be sharing with you all in a few moments. All right, now if you're still writing, go ahead, keep writing. I do encourage it. Yes, Kristen, giving credit to Stuart Smalley as an old Saturday Night Live skit where he was a very positive person and that they did with Al Franken. He used to be a comedian before he was a politician. All right, so affirmations working, and we're going to revisit those here in just a moment. I love Dr. Joyce Brothers, who was very well known back in probably 60s, 70s, 80s as a psychologist, saying that success is a state of mind. If you want success, start thinking of yourself as a success. And that is so true. If you want to be positive, think of yourself as positive. If you want to be confident, you think about yourself as being confident. I can remember when I was in college, there was this one girl on campus that I knew, and we would see each other in the student center because we were both very active and stuff. And we would see each other, and the first person would say, hey, how's it going? And the other person would go, tired. And the other person would go, yep, tired. And you know what I finally realized after a while was, you keep telling yourself you're tired, what are you going to be? Tired. And so one time I saw her and she says, how you doing? I'm like, I'm great. And she goes, okay, what just happened to you? And we had a conversation about it, and we no longer played the tired game. Let's talk a little bit about journaling, and this will go to what someone just here said, Samantha just said about the gratitude jar. Journaling is a great way to take that inner voice and bring it into the world, but you bring it into the world for you. It doesn't have to be something you share with other people. It is a non-threatening way to put things down on paper. And I like to do that. I will journal things. It will put things down, things that I'm thinking. I can remember a couple of years ago, I was traveling a lot. I also had a little side gig because I had, gone through some health things, and so we needed a little extra to pay the bills, and I wasn't seeing my family much. And I remember one day in my journal writing, I feel like I'm a spectator in my own family or my own life. And I look back at that and I'm like, oh, okay, that's something we need to work on changing. And so I did, and made changes and got rid of the side gig and spent more time with my wife and daughter, who was still in high school at that time. And this last year, we got to spend a lot of time together before she went off to college. And it really has made a big difference in our family and our relationship. So journaling will a lot of times give you thoughts that you didn't realize you were having. And so that's what I want to suggest. So first thing, start out. Now, you don't have space on the handout for this. There's no time to do 25 good things, but I want you to eventually write down 25 good things about you. Write some down right now. These are kind of akin to your affirmations, but they could also be, I'm a good writer. I am great at math. You know, these would be things maybe you didn't think about for your affirmations, which can sometimes be a little bit more macro, but write down these things that are good about you. I am a great hugger, and I'm looking forward to letting the world know that again sometime very soon. My wife doesn't mind. She's getting the benefit of all my hugs right now. So, a couple of things that are good about you. And this will be your list of things that you can look at. Like Samantha suggests, you can even put these in a jar and each day look at them. And then have another jar where you put them in so they kind of go from one to the other. And after you use up the first jar, then you go back and you got the other jar. And you just keep going back and rotating around. And you can add stuff as you go along. Then this is again from that resource that I mentioned, that book that I used to help develop this program. Write down 10 areas for improvement. These are not what you would perceive as weaknesses or shortcomings. Oh, my nose is too big, and or my hair is too thin. Hey, I inherited this from my grandfather, and I am keeping it. So there you go. Whatever it might be, those types of things. What it should be is more. For me, one of the things I wanted to improve was spending time reading my Bible. And so, about a year and a half ago, I wrote down an area for improvement is to spend more time in Scripture. And so now I get this daily Bible study that I do, and it takes me just a few minutes, which is perfect for me. And I'm able to write and read and stuff. And so that's great for me. So, what are some areas of improvement you might have? Um, I'm normally able to help others as I cry inside. Oh, Marichelle, I know you have that ability to help others, but also think about these as things that you can do to help yourself. And here's another thing you can do, maybe for your gratitude jar. At the end of each day, write down 5 things that you accomplished. Today, you came to a workshop on self-esteem and you stayed for the whole thing. I know part of it was because you wanted to get a prize. That's okay, but you stayed for the whole thing. That's an accomplishment. You got a good grade on a paper. You did something at work that was good. You got up this morning. I have a friend who speaks and consults more with people in the senior market, so to speak. And she told me she had this one client, he was in his mid 80s. And every day in the morning when he wakes up, the first words out of his mouth after he's opened his eyes are, "I'm back." What a great attitude. Isn't that awesome to think that way? It's like, hey, I'm back. Hello, world. Here I am. So I want to encourage you to be doing this on a daily basis. These are things that you can do that, and if you make this a habit, commit to doing them for at least the next 3 weeks. And if you do so, you will be creating a new habit. That's what experts say. It takes 3 weeks to create a new habit. I did one starting in January, this study that I'm doing. He encouraged us to write down every day the Bible verse and then repeat it out loud before we went to bed and when we got up in the morning. And so I did, and I'm still doing it. And I was only supposed to be for the month of January, but I liked it so much and it became a habit for me that I'm still doing it. And so those types of things can really have an impact on your life. See, here's the thing, you have a choice about this. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. That's true. And this is, we're going out forward boldly, working to try to change who we are, change our lives, and change the way we look at things. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of time in the breakout rooms because I love breakout rooms. And so I've already set up the rooms. I think we've got it set up here. If I can open that again. We're going to have 4 to 5 people in a room. You know what, let's actually make that just a tad smaller. And we're going to have 3 to 4 people in each room. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. One is each person say your affirmations that you just wrote to your roommates. And those of you who are not saying affirmations, you have to be that person's mirror. So you're going to need to have your cameras on when you're in the breakout room, if you can. I know sometimes if you're driving, don't be having your camera on, but sometimes the devices don't really work the way we'd like them to for that. But you want to be a positive mirror. So you want to put a big smile on. And so be positive like that. Well, maybe not quite like that. That's a little creepy, but you could be a very positive mirror. And then I want to visit this conversation that I kind of started at the beginning and have you have a chance to talk about this. How does society's expectations, especially from social media, advertising, and other things, affect our self-esteem? I want to give you a chance in your groups to talk about this. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes in the breakout rooms. So everybody say your affirmations and then talk about this question. How do the expectations of society, particularly of gender and image, as expressed by people's opinions, social media, publications, mass media, Anything else you can think of affects self-esteem. All right, we just had everybody join us, and I just asked, would anybody like to share how you liked sharing your affirmations in the breakout room? You can just unmute yourself. Oh, you forgot, Lisa. You were digging into the social media part. That's okay. That's absolutely fine. So do it in your own mirror when you get home, whichever room you were in, y'all. Yeah, Samantha, that you don't have a choice in your circumstances, but you have a choice how you react to those. And I also believe in another program, I talk about how I think circumstances and environment can be overcome. I'm first generation college graduate in my family. Actually, I had an uncle who played 2 years of college baseball. That was it. So I consider myself first gen all the way. And there's been many gens since now that have graduated in my family. But I grew up in a mobile home in a trailer park on the side of a highway. I was a free lunch kid, but you wouldn't know that looking at me unless I told you that. And so those types of things can be overcome. It's just a matter of how you approach those. So thank you, Nicole. I appreciate that. Well, how about the societal expectations on affecting self-esteem and social media and everything else? Anybody have a thought that they want to share? You can put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself to share that.
We talked about how social media tries to shape your view of yourself, how you need to be a certain size or
Mhm.
have a certain job, a certain car, eat here, wear Nike, because of what it's pushing towards you and your family. They're continually reminding you you're not good enough unless you wear this brand of polo or have this perfume. um, that sort of thing. Those were some of the things that we talked about in our group.
Yeah, absolutely. And Devonna commented about how body dysmorphia and social approach is a big soapbox for them. So, yeah, those things really do have an impact, and they can affect how we think about things. But I don't know if you've ever seen one of those videos where they take a model who comes in, and then she's like dressed like a normal person, and then they start doing her makeup and her hair and everything, put on the clothes and everything. And then they do the photo shoot where like she's contorting in all these different ways. And then after the pictures are done, they show the graphic designer or whatever they call those folks on the making her eye a little bit bigger, making this one a little smaller and everything. And then the last thing is you see that go up in a billboard, which means it is all fake. So don't let those things affect you. Advertising to me, it should be a resource of like, oh, I didn't know that they made that. I might want to get that. That might be good for my family. Not like, oh, now I feel bad. I better go buy one of those. So that's how I think we have to look at those types of things. I just like the funny commercials, and which is great because I never know what they're selling anyway because I laugh at them. All right, let's talk about a couple of other things because we've got a prize wheel we've got to get to. But if you have other questions or thoughts, feel free to pop them in the chat and I'll try to share those, or you can keep an eye on that. Talk about your environment, and this was something that's just brought up about circumstances. You want to control it in order to enhance your self-esteem. What should your environment be? And your environment can be all these different things that are here on the screen on your handout. And family, friends, faith groups, school, workplaces, organizations, clubs. It can be all these types of things. How do you ensure that it's a nurturing environment? Here's a whole bunch of things, and I'll kind of talk about them here. And, oh, you know what? I realized I'm not sharing my screen. Let me share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Apologize for that. I get so caught up with the breakout rooms. And so here you go. Here are a whole bunch of things that you want to look for in your environment that will help you to that it should be nurturing and caring. If it's not, then it's an environment that you don't want to be in. Or that you want to try to extricate yourself with. I told you I had this side gig. I was at a restaurant, and we had this manager who decided to play this game where every time he saw you, especially when you first came in for the shift, he would go, "You suck, Dave." And the response had to be, "No, Brandon, you suck." And this game would be played throughout the whole shift. Every time I came in, and finally one day I came in, I'm like, geez, I don't even want to go to work today. And I realized it was because of the "you suck" game. And so Brandon said that to me and said, "Brandon, I'm not playing that game anymore. I'm a professional speaker. I talk about positivity. You're being very negative, and I'm not going to play." "Oh, well, that's just because you suck." I'm like, "Okay, Brandon, I suck. I don't care." Boom. That was the end of the "you suck" game. So I changed the environment at that workplace. So think about how these things can have an impact on you. Um, It should be an accepting environment, accepting you for who you are and what you are. Great thing is now in society, we are not fully there, but we are far down the road from where we used to be in terms of acceptance of people for who they are. So continue to build up those types of, have those conversations, have that idea that we're going to be accepting of people for who they are and what makes them who they are, makes them special, makes them unique, what they can bring to the group, the workplace, the club, the organization, whatever it might be. It should be encouraging. Again, the you suck game, not encouraging. But this idea of you can do it, you can be great, you can do these things. Yeah, you can make a big difference in other people's lives. And so that's how I always try to be as a state advisor. I was always very encouraging with my students. Sorry about that, I hit my mouse. Very encouraging with my students that they could achieve the things that they were trying to go for. And I would help them get, oh, I like that. Instead of you suck, you rock. You know, actually 1 year, and as a state advisor, one of our district governor, who's the lead person, had a You Rock award, where at every board meeting, somebody would get, they had this big rock that they had found, and then they'd say, all right, Kathleen, you rock this time. And so then Kathleen, and they would get to decorate the rock. And by the end of the year, about 10 people had gotten the You Rock award, and they all had decorated this rock, and we showed it off at our convention. So thank you. I've forgotten all about that. Thanks for reminding me of that, Kristen. All right, a couple of other things before we cruise to our conclusion and to the prize wheel. Sometimes you're going to have to receive criticism, and sometimes you are going to be giving criticism. Let's talk about the receiving. When receiving, and I'm going to again put these all up here so I can just sort of talk about them while you are writing or typing them in. You don't want to interrupt. Let the person who's giving you criticism finish their critique, because then you get the full picture of what it is that they are talking about, what it is that has brought them to this point. You can agree where possible. You're right. I did do this. I did say that. Ask for clarification to make sure, wait a minute, I'm not even sure what we're really talking about here. Can you step back a little bit and tell me why we're having this conversation, or what it was specifically about what I did or said that we're talking about? If you're wrong, admit it. You know, if you made a mistake, if you said something you shouldn't have, then admit it and apologize. But it is also okay to, if it's unfair, if it's been exaggerated, if it's anything that really you consider to be wrong, it's okay to disagree, as this person's talking about you and with you, and hopefully only to you when this conversation takes place. If somebody wants to come to you to give you a critique or criticism in front of everybody else, that's the point where you say, hey, can we go to another room? Can we talk about this later? Can we go in a breakout room? Can we go to a private Zoom call? Can I call you on the phone? I don't want to have this conversation in front of everybody. And sometimes people think, oh, it has to be done right in this minute. No, it doesn't. Not usually. I mean, unless whatever you're doing right at that moment is hurting somebody, then it doesn't have to be done right then and there. When you give a criticism or you're dealing with conflict, here's my 5 concepts. If you have a problem or a conflict with somebody and you don't take it to that person, it can't be very significant. Who is the one person that can help you with that to solve it? The person you have the conflict with. This was shared with me when I was a 19-year-old student leader, and I still believe it to this day. And if not, I just let it go. It's like, you know what? It's not that big of a deal. I'm going to move on. And so that's my approach to things. Now, is it okay to take somebody with you if the other person's a little intimidating or a higher status or stature? Sure, but make sure that third party is clearly impartial so that the other person doesn't feel ganged up on. You wouldn't want to be in that situation of 2 against 1. Deal with conflict one-on-one, what I was just saying. Praise in public, criticize in private. You don't want to have those types of critical conversations in public, because sometimes people lose their mind, they lose their cool, they get embarrassed. They don't want to have that happen in front of other people. So if you have to give a critique, keep that in mind that you want to do it privately. Hey, can I talk to you after the meeting? Can I give you a call later tonight? Can we have a Zoom? Whatever it might be. When you're giving criticisms, I believe in using something called the 3C system. Compliment, criticize, compliment. It's a compliment sandwich. Kind of like, hey, you know, Ronnie, you've got a lot of great ideas, but when you talk out of turn, it disrupts us. So if you raise your hand, I'll call on you. We'll hear all the wonderful things you have to say. See how I did that? Which is what my senior high school English teacher, Miss Dew, should have done on the first day of senior English class when Ronnie Pat was being disruptive. Instead, she looked at him and she said, you, sir, are a creep, sir." And he was disruptive the rest of the year. Now, somebody did point out that she used the sandwich, but calling someone a creep in the middle of it is kind of like the "you suck" game. Don't play that game. Learn to separate the person from the position. You want to use I statements. I feel like you could do a better job. I feel like this project could have been done differently. I feel like maybe you need some help or some assistance. This can lead you into asking direct questions to deal with the situation. Do you feel you can still continue in this role, or should we ask someone else to take it on? Do you have the time to commit to this? Do you want to still be president of the club or organization, whatever it might be? Do you want to give this responsibility to someone else? Yeah, you know what? I am really not a good editor. Do we have somebody else? I can write, I can't edit. Yeah, we got someone's got a journalism degree on our staff. There you go. So you use these direct questions, and they can really make a big difference in your life. And if you do this, you can avoid a lot of collisions. You can avoid a lot of problems, and you can maintain your level of self-esteem and not affect someone else's. Now, I'm going to invite you to ask any questions you might have in the chat, but I know we're close to the end of our time, and we have to have the prize wheel. So Carrie is ready with the prize wheel. There's my contact information if you would like to get it. Those of you who are watching the recording, that will pop up as an end slide, so you can pick it up that way. But I'm going to unshare my screen so that Carrie can now go ahead and do the prize wheel.
Great. Well, really quick before I get onto the prize wheel, I want to share some important information. For those of you that were on the call yesterday, we actually had a presentation yesterday that dealt also a lot with mental health. And we were joined, in addition to the presenter, Mr. Lorenzo Lewis, who manages the Confess Project. We were joined by Purdue University Fort Wayne's Behavioral Health and Family Studies Institute director, Mrs. Alice Jordan Miles, and she provided a wealth of information about local resources here in town to help. And I think that those resources are just as relevant here as they are, as we're talking about self-esteem. So I'm going to drop those links to those resources. I've got some downloadable downloadable PDFs that link all of these national and local resources. If that self-esteem that we have going on, that you have going on internally is just too much to handle and you're looking for a little additional help, those resources are out there. So I'm going to drop those in the chat, as well as a link to yesterday's video if you're interested. Secondly, some of you are participating in the Leadership Development Certification Series. And if you remember, you are required to complete the debrief form after watching each of the videos. So I'm going to link that in the chat as well. And then let me go ahead and do all those things before I forget. And then I will get to our prize wheel. So here are the downloads. And also I will be sharing these on the video in the video description. So okay, why isn't that linking? Okay, there are the downloads. Here is the link to yesterday's video. And here is the link to the debrief form. And as this is our last leadership development presentation for the semester, if you've completed all of your events and your debrief forms, then you will want to make sure and complete the final summary, which you will find that information on the original email that I sent out when you registered. So you will need to complete your final summary of all 4 or 5 of the events that you attended. So, all right, that is my housekeeping stuff. Let's get to the prize winning. So, okay, where are we at here? Where's my prize wheel? There it is. Okay, let me share my screen. We are giving away, let me get rid of that guy. We are giving away $50 to Target today as part of the call. So I've got everybody who has joined us on the call on our prize wheel. Let's give it a spin, see who won the $50. Whoop, whoop, Miss Nicole. Nicole, You will be receiving a gift form in the mail or in the email from me. And then once you complete that, then I will get your gift card sent in the email as well. Everybody else who's on the call, as well as anybody who is watching this on a recording, I'm giving you guys until next Wednesday to log participation for this event. Information will be shared after the video concludes on how you log your participation. And as well as everybody who's live on the call, you'll be entered into a second drawing. We're giving away 2 Red Robin $25 gift cards, and we're still giving away 5 of Mr. Kelly's books. Mr. Kelly, can you say the name of your book again? Because I don't have it off the top of my head. You're muted.
I'm frantically responding to people in the chat. I apologize for that. My book is Building Leaders Through Service, The Qualities of Serving Leaders. And
Yes,
there's 6-7 chapters and talking about qualities of service.
You in our mailing system. So those are going to be mailed out today. So you will be getting your books. Don't worry. And that's great. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Mr. Kelly, we have so much enjoyed having you on this journey with us through this semester. You've been with us for 4 different events. We've all enjoyed meeting you. We've all enjoyed getting to know you. I'm really happy that you were able to join us for 4 of these leadership series presentations. And we hopefully get to work with you again soon. And everybody who's joined us on this journey as well, thank you for joining us. And I hope you keep an eye out for our future events. I want to thank everybody for being here. Have a great day.